In Mark chapter 9, Jesus had had a literal mountaintop experience when he was transfigured. For a moment, his closest disciples and friends, Peter, James, and John, had glimpsed on him the glory that he had from the Father, even hearing God's own voice saying that this is my beloved Son. But no sooner did Jesus and those disciples come down from that mountain than this happened. In Mark chapter 9, beginning with verse 14. And when they came to the disciples, they saw a great crowd around them, and scribes arguing with them. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. And he asked them, "What are you arguing about with them?" And someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able." And he answered them, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." Have you ever had an experience like that? Not that anyone's ever asked you to cast out an evil spirit. I mean, where you've had this amazing mountaintop experience. Maybe you went on the most incredible vacation, or you received some meaningful recognition at work, or just something great happened at home. And then before the dust even settles, something bad follows right behind. I know professionally I experienced that a lot in my former career in healthcare administration, to the point where I would almost start to dread the really good weeks because I would know that a really difficult one was just around the corner. Well, that's very much what Jesus experienced here. It doesn't get much better than having God the Father say, "You are my beloved Son," for your closest friends and followers to witness that. But then before they even get all the way down the mountain, they see the crowd and they hear the arguing. And there's multiple levels at which that would be disappointing. There's the level at which just any sort of conflict is difficult for us. It can ruin a good day. But there's also the level at which, prior to this, Jesus had given his 12 apostles the authority to cast out evil spirits. So there was a failure on their part, that they weren't able to do what Jesus had given them the authority to do. There was the disappointment that it sowed among all the people to see this shortcoming, for the Father to have a son that wasn't able to be better, even though he brought him to Jesus. All of that is very difficult. It would be very upsetting. And we can hear that from Jesus. You can hear the exasperation in his voice when he says, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you?" Jesus didn't come to cast out all of the evil spirits in first century Galilee. He had a bigger mission that he was there to fulfill, one which would ultimately see him return to his Father in heaven. Yet, that seems so far away, with all of these demands and all of these people with all of these needs, and his own apostles failing to exercise the authority that he gave them. Yet, even as Jesus encountered that disappointment, notice how he handled it, because he did bear with them. He wouldn't always be there to do this. This was, without a doubt, a disappointment. But he still said, "Bring him to me." When Jesus faced the valley after the mountaintop, he bore it. And in some ways, I've come to think that the Father saying, "This is my beloved Son," wasn't negated by the disappointment as soon as he came off the mountain. It filled him up so that he was prepared for it. It gave him the encouragement, the love that he needed to still show compassion even when the people were arguing because their needs weren't being met and his disciples were failing to exercise the authority he'd given them. He had just had this mountaintop, so he was prepared that even though people were acting all sorts of messy, he would be able to bear with them. He would be able to do what he could to help while he was there. And as we come to learn that about Jesus, that's a challenge for us as his followers. Because there will be times where we are disappointed. There will be times where we face difficult situations where people around us are arguing, where people are coming to us upset because we're not immediately doing what they think we should be doing. But when we've been receiving that love of God, like Jesus, then we can bear with them. We can do what we can to help, even though we might be disappointed, even though we might be the ones that were let down or even treated wrongfully in the situation. We bear with them because God has filled us up, because God has prepared us, and because we want God's will to be done.